We may all still be laughing about how much of a joke Wednesday's game was, but Craig Breslow provided a pretty defined update recently about a key player that could make us all a little bit more excited.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it's all free. So if you're looking to tune in, it really is no cost to you. So you might as well, because Locked On is your team every day. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, h-vac, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. Happy Friday. Welcome to Locked On Red Sox. Finally made it to the end of the week. Not sure about you, but this definitely felt like a long week. And part of that was probably because the Red Sox just had a really rough week of baseball on their road trip, both to LA and Colorado. And now it's at the point where they are back home, starting a big series against the Yankees, in which they have a chance to gain some good ground on them because they are only a few games behind them at this point. So this is going to be a key series in terms of the wild card standings, but also really with the chance to get closer to hopping above them in the division standings. So a little bit later in today's show, I'm going to be previewing that series against the Yankees. I'm also going to be talking about confidence in the front office. Craig Breslow did finally pick a lane and say that he was going to be adding to this team at the trade deadline. But how much do we trust that? Going to be discussing that a little bit later. But first, he did give an update to a key player recently, and it has definitely been a little bit frustrating because there have been a lot of cryptic messages that have been sent regarding this player, and updates have been a little bit unclear as to his timeline for return, and that is Triston Casas. Now, he has been sidelined since about mid-April with a torn cartilage in his rib, which is pretty serious. And an injury that really sounds as painful as it is. And earlier on in his process, he kind of came on record and said his goal was to be back around the All-Star break. And the Red Sox didn't really confirm or deny that that was true, that that would happen. And then Alex Cora recently gave an update that said he's not even close to a rehab assignment. So just, hold your fire in terms of getting excited about his return and coming back. But Craig Breslow recently provided an update yesterday that Casas has been taking full batting practice and could be ready to begin a rehab assignment by the end of the week, which is pretty sudden because honestly, there has been no indication in the most recent reports prior to that he was even close to being ready. So it definitely comes as a little bit of a surprise if that is the case. But this definitely qualifies as the most favorable update for sure, because I was starting to have in my head that we might not see him again this season based on what it seemed like from what the Red Sox were providing. So he could have a shot to return from the 60-day injured list by early or mid-August now, which would be very exciting and key for this Red Sox team because this is a team that really could use him. Yes, Dom Smith has been an okay replacement offensively. He's been kind of starting to get going, but nothing too glamorous in terms of his numbers. And they've had Romy Gonzalez play first base here and there too in some of the games as well. So those two have been kind of platooning that position with a lot more of that workload at first base going to Dom Smith. But you can't look at those two players and say that either of them or even both of them combined is better than Triston Casas. The value that Casas provides to this team is something that we very much need if we're trying to make a playoff run in the second half of the season. If we look at his season last year and just how good he actually was, seriously putting up a season that was putting him in talks for being Rookie of the Year. He had a fantastic season last year and certainly made an impression, and it made me really excited for this season and what he was going to look like after his rookie season and having a full season here in Boston under his belt. And there were a lot of expectations for him going into the season. And he was definitely ready to meet those expectations and played the first few weeks of the season and then unfortunately went down with this injury. So he hasn't been able to have a chance to showcase what he worked on in the offseason and how his approach has changed this year to make himself even better as a hitter. But he certainly had the type of rookie season to where we can feel pretty confident that he'll be able to provide a lot of value moving forward with this team. And that's something that I think is super exciting because having a guy like Casas here, who the Red Sox are very excited about, is so special because he's a guy you can really build around for the future. But with where this Red Sox team is at right now and hanging on the brink of a wild card spot, you want to have him in there because he certainly is a reinforcement and he's somebody who's going to provide a ton of value down the road in the last couple months of the season, because what he brings at the plate, it seems like when Casas is hitting well, the rest of the lineup is hitting well, which is interesting. And defensively, he's grown a lot as a first baseman over the last year or so. So being able to replace Dom Smith's defense with his is certainly an upgrade in that regard. So looking at this whole situation, is Breslow just saying that? I really don't think he would. So that's why I'm feeling optimistic that this update is the one to believe the most out of all of them, because obviously something took a turn with his rehab. Obviously, Alex Cora and maybe some other people around the Red Sox organization thought he was a little bit further behind than he actually was in terms of his recovery process and coming back. But something must have changed over the last few days in which they realized that he's actually more ready to go and further along in his process than they thought he was. And that's definitely very exciting, but it's also obviously been frustrating because it's been this group of emotions that are mixed with either should we be excited? Is he coming back soon? Or upset that maybe we won't see him for the rest of the season, or hopeful that maybe he'll come back sooner rather than later. There's just been too many emotions because there haven't been a lot of positive updates. And the updates we have gotten haven't always been super clear either. So it almost seemed to me like the Red Sox didn't even know where he was at in terms of his process. But it's very exciting that this is coming from Breslow. And notice how all of a sudden now, since Alex Cora signed his extension, Breslow has been a lot more vocal and a lot more open and direct about things. Because let's face it, the Red Sox over the last few seasons in general have not been good at being open with the audience and letting fans know what's actually going on and the real deal. And I feel like Breslow has, in a way, been better with that than Chaim Bloom was. But this direct form that he's taking in terms of his communication isn't something that we've fully seen from him since he was hired into his position. So I think it's really interesting that Alex Cora signs his extension and then all of a sudden Craig Breslow comes out directly and says we're looking to get better and add help for this team at the trade deadline. And then the very next day after that comes out with a more direct update on Triston Casas. That's a positive one, and that he could begin a rehab assignment later this week, because last I had checked, according to what Alex Cora had said, he wasn't even close to a rehab assignment. So what changed there? So there's definitely a little bit of fishiness going on with this whole thing. Am I complaining? Absolutely not. Is Triston Casas an addition that's absolutely needed for this Red Sox team? 100%. So I am looking forward to his return. I feel like he's so determined to come back and try to make up for lost time. And over the last few months that he's missed, he's really been focusing on what he can do when he comes back to really make an impact on this team. So I think we're going to get a very strong version of Triston Casas when he comes back, a great addition to the lineup that is much needed. And hopefully if the Red Sox bring him back along with adding some key pieces at the deadline, it puts them as a team in a lot better position to succeed. So I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully he stays on track with what Craig Breslow said. If he begins a rehab assignment later this week, that would be super exciting, because then we definitely know we can expect him back over the next couple weeks, which is very exciting news for all of Red Sox Nation. With the talk that the Red Sox have given about being buyers at the deadline, but not necessarily executing on that fully over the last few seasons, how much do we trust them to really address what needs to be done in this trade deadline week? That's coming up next. This episode of Locked On Red Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rivals' city. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. Yeah, they talk a lot about eventually liking your rival's city. I can assure you I very much still do not like New York City, nor do I like Yankee Stadium, but Camden Yards is one of my favorite ballparks I've ever seen, and I used Booking.com to book a trip to Baltimore when I went there, and it was a great experience overall, and I definitely will go back. So you can utilize it too and really get the option to explore lots of different cities. Do you like making money? Do you like watching sports and making some bets on them? If you answered yes to both of those questions, then FanDuel is the place for you, and you should not wait to download FanDuel today. I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster or bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I am telling you from personal experience, my fiance literally makes bets all the time on FanDuel. He has a little spreadsheet going where he lists all the games that are that day, no matter what sport it is. And then he makes bets accordingly based on different odds. And it's made him a lot of money. So that could be you too if you just download FanDuel today and take that first step. It's pretty easy. You should also check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app, and it will keep you up to date on all things going on in sports, no matter where you're at or what time zone you're in, with all of our local experts here at Locked On. So make sure that you check that out today. How much confidence do you have in the front office? Because we have had this situation before where the Red Sox have said they're going to go all out and they don't. This past offseason being the most recent example, when you had them talking about going full throttle and making these big moves to add to the team to make them a contender this season. And then they went and had a relatively quiet offseason. And they're very lucky that the team is overperforming right now generally compared to what people thought they would be doing, because of the fact that they didn't go out and make the necessary moves that they needed to. And it's really helping the front office to be able to justify their moves or lack thereof during the offseason. And now Craig Breslow is coming out and saying, we are going to have a trade deadline where we're going to add pieces. And I do feel like that went hand in hand with Alex Cora's extension. I feel like part of him agreeing to an extension was that the front office had to promise that they were going to be buyers at this trade deadline, and they were going to do what they could to add to this team. And then they went out and said, we want to add pieces. And Sam Kennedy basically gave a statement basically responding to what Craig Breslow said about how they're going to add to the team. And he said, I don't want to be premature or basically say for sure what's going to happen at this trade deadline because you don't really know how the market's going to play out. Sometimes there are surprise teams that decide they're going to sell that you didn't think were going to sell, or vice versa, teams that aren't planning on selling that you think we're going to. So to his point, I think he was basically saying you can't predict exactly how the market's going to go, so I can't tell you exactly what will happen. But I do support Craig Breslow's statements basically saying we do agree that we want to add to this team. And that's all very promising, but words are words. Actions speak a lot louder than words. I mentioned that on yesterday's show too, how it's about what you go and do after this. And the standard is really low, unfortunately, for Red Sox fans right now in terms of what this front office does to improve this team. I need to see action. I need to see them actually go out and address the biggest areas of need, which are a right-handed bat and some pitching help, preferably both a starter and a reliever, maybe even two. Those are the areas that the Red Sox need to improve in at this deadline if they want to contend for one of those wild card spots. And the question really becomes, how serious are they about improving? Because I've already seen, even over the last 48 hours, some rumors circulating about how they are looking to move some of their impending free agents like Kenley Jansen, Tyler O'Neill, and Nick Pivetta, that they are open to discussing opportunities for one of those three guys. Now, trading Tyler O'Neill at this point to me would be a mistake because they don't really have enough of a right-handed heavy lineup to do that. He's really the only true impactful right-handed bat that they have in this lineup right now. Kenley Jansen, to me, trading him would also be a mistake because then who would close games? You do need a reliable closer if you want to compete for a playoff spot, because if you make the postseason, you're going to be playing a lot of close games. That's just the intensity and the atmosphere of what playoff baseball is. And you're going to want your Hall of Fame closer out there who has done this many times before and has proven to be able to get out of tight jams and intense situations in the ninth inning of games. So if you trade Kenley and you bring in somebody else, who would you have close games? Would you experiment with somebody? Because that seems a little bit scary to do if you're trying to make a serious playoff run. The word experiment cannot be mixed into anything involving a team trying to contend. So that alone is scary too. I mean, Nick Pivetta, I could kind of see if they feel like they don't trust him that much to be able to perform in the postseason. He has been a little bit shaky this season. He's had some very good starts, but he does still have problems with giving up the long ball. And he just came off of a really rough start against the Rockies in which he didn't even last through 3 innings. So it's definitely tough to anticipate what could happen with Nick Pivetta. However, by trading him at the end of the day, you are still losing a key piece of the starting rotation. And then you have to fill that spot somehow with a team that for this whole season hasn't really had a fifth starter defined. And I've talked about it before, how they need to be adding a number 4 or 5 starter at the trade deadline, but that doesn't mean they should be trading away one of their current starters either. There's no need to deplete the farm system or do anything crazy. There's no need to get rid of anybody in that big 3 of prospects in Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, or Kyle Teal. They can keep all of that intact and keep their future intact. But right now, they need to focus on adding pieces. And I don't mean add pieces as in, oh, let's just pick up some guy off waivers who was DFA'd because he wasn't reliable and go and try it out and see if it works. That is not the type of move that I want the Red Sox to make at this trade deadline. I want them to get proven guys who are having a good season this year, but are on the trade market because the team that they are on are not going to be buyers, and it makes a lot more sense for them to sell and get the return. I'm not asking for a Garrett Crochet type. I know he's going to be really expensive, and I know there's going to be a team like the Dodgers who are probably heavily after him. I think that would require too many prospects for the Red Sox to give up, so I think that would be a no-go for them. But I'm asking for a mid to lower level starting pitcher who shouldn't be that expensive, and just a couple relievers that you can slot in there to give more of an option. Because once Justin Slayton comes back, which hopefully should be soon, you already have him as that 7th to 8th inning guy. And then who knows when Chris Martin's going to be back. Hopefully he's going to be back soon too. But you need other guys to be able to slot in there that are reliable to throw in those late innings if those guys end up being out longer than the Red Sox would hope for them to be out or can afford for them to be out. So there absolutely are things they can do. And these can be reliable guys who are impactful but aren't at the highest level. Those are the types of players the Red Sox need right now. I'm not asking for the best starting pitcher on the market. I'm not asking for even the best right-handed bat on the market. I'm asking for guys who can come in and contribute and are impactful. There's a big difference between being impactful and being the best. If you can contribute to this team and create some depth and some variety in terms of what the Red Sox are putting on the field, then that to me is the type of player the Red Sox need to acquire. And it doesn't need to be anything drastic. And I don't expect it to be anything drastic. But the question is, will they actually do it? Or will we see them do what they did last year and maybe trade for Luis Urias, who was not very good prior to coming to the Red Sox and had been struggling during the season, and calling that a day and saying, okay, good enough. This is the type of move that we needed. Is it going to be that type of trade deadline? Because if so, that's not really living up to what Craig Breslow said. They need to add at least 3 pieces. They don't need to be drastic moves, but something needs to be done and they need to make the move. So I'm just really hoping that Breslow lives up to his word and he adds the pieces that need to be added. Time will tell, though. Only a few more days now until the trade deadline to wait. And coming up, leading up to that trade deadline, the Red Sox have a big series coming up against the Yankees this weekend for a chance to get closer to hopping them in the standings. So coming up, I'm going to be previewing that big series. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free TradeMaster program. Every TradeMaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/T-M and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. There's always something that goes wrong in our houses. It's just part of life. So if you have a way to acquire some of those tools needed pretty quickly and easily, you might as well take advantage of it. So that's exactly what Supply House is for. They absolutely will have you covered for all of those electrical needs. Also, Locked On Sports Today will have you covered to keep you caught up in all things going on in sports. All of our experts here at Locked On will give you all of the biggest storylines, so you don't have to worry about scrolling through Twitter to catch up or checking out the national outlets to hopefully wait for a story that they may or may not talk about. We will make sure you're up to date with any sport, no matter what time of day it is or where you are located. So make sure you check that out today on either YouTube or Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app if you want to stay up to date. The Red Sox are getting closer and closer to the trade deadline, and there's been a burning question of what is the trade deadline going to look like for the Red Sox, and soon enough we will know. Hopefully they go out and get the pieces they need to make this feel like a more complete team that can make a serious run this year, because to me it would be a huge letdown if they don't do that, because that's going against their word that Craig Breslow has been saying over the last couple of days that Sam Kennedy then backed up. So it's very crucial that they make those moves, but it is also very crucial that the Red Sox get over this hump that they have been in lately of struggling to beat teams. Like, they almost won every game against the Dodgers, really. They were pretty much in all of those games at one point or another, and then they kept blowing opportunities to win the game. And then they played a first game against the Rockies that it felt like they really should have won. Twice they blew a save in that game, and then the Rockies ended up walking it off in extra innings, and then they bounced back on day 2 and had a joke of a game on day 3 that we just act like didn't happen at this point on the show here. Not a real game, didn't happen. Red Sox were off that day. Sure, let's go with it. So they need to bounce back. And this weekend, they are facing a Yankees team that has been struggling. They have the second worst record in baseball since June 1st, and they have been losing a lot of games. And this upcoming series is a great way for the Red Sox to have a chance to gain serious ground on them in not only the wild card standings, but also in the division. And that's what is exciting. It's going to be really entertaining to watch the Red Sox face off against the Yankees when the teams are pretty close in the standings, thanks to the Yankees not having played well and the Red Sox having played very well. They have the best record in baseball overall since June 1st. And it's very exciting to think about that because things are starting to click for them, but they need to take it game by game. And this upcoming series against the Yankees that opens tonight is the first step towards the Red Sox inching their way up more and more in the standings. So for the Red Sox, scheduled to pitch in tonight's game is Brayan Bello, who is coming off a pretty decent start against the Dodgers. The Red Sox ended up losing that game 7-6 in extra innings, but Bello went 6 innings, giving up 5 hits and 3 earned runs, and he struck out 7. So he did have a quality start in that game, even though the Red Sox did end up losing the game. Bello deserves credit for a good, solid start against a good Dodgers lineup, and he hopefully is going to start to turn the corner and bounce back from that, and ideally he'd be able to trick and throw off the Yankees lineup because he needs to be able to stay consistent, because his biggest issue this season has been consistency in having good starts, and he really has been struggling. So he's definitely going to need some help from his offense, because it's really hard for me to feel confident that he'll go out there and throw strikes and mow over the Yankees lineup. I do think they'll be able to get to him, but the Red Sox offense can also get to Nestor Cortez, who's 4-9 with a 3.99 ERA this season. He's had very strong starts this year, but he has not been as sharp as he was last year, and he's definitely beatable. So if the Red Sox go out there and are aggressive from the get-go, they could certainly beat him. It's going to be a very offensive series for the Red Sox. They're going to have to rely on their bats for a lot of this series. In game 2, they are going up against Marcus Stroman, who's 7-5 with a 3.51 ERA. He pitched very well against the Red Sox the last time that he faced them. So hopefully the Red Sox are able to crack him and figure him out as they go into this game. Cutter Crawford is pitching that game for Boston, 6-8 with a 3.37 ERA. He is coming off of a very rough latest start. Also against the Dodgers, he went 5 innings, giving up 7 hits and 6 earned runs, and 5 of those came on home runs. He gave up 5 of the long ball, which is very uncharacteristic of him. He clearly was off in that game. He doesn't give up a lot of home runs regularly, but it just wasn't his day. But I feel like he's going to bounce back, because we've seen a lot of Cutter this year, and for the most part, he's been able to get the job done and produce quality starts. So I have faith that Cutter is going to be able to turn things around. So I think we're going to get a good start from him. I think that could be one of the better pitching matchups in the series, is Stroman versus Crawford. However, the Red Sox bats, again, need to come through and be able to get to them early and attack the strike zone and be able to just hit the ball in all different parts of the ballpark and steal bases like they do well, because that's something that they've always been really good at, that I feel confident they can do. Carlos Rodon is starting the series finale for the Yankees, 10-7 with a 4.42 ERA. He has been shaky this season, had a good last outing, but not living up to the expectation that Yankees fans want him to. He's also had a problem with being able to stay healthy in his time with the Yankees. So him coming back and being healthy now for them, their fans are definitely optimistic that he can stay consistent and produce solid starts all around. But the Red Sox certainly can get to somebody like him, sometimes has command issues and doesn't always have his best stuff. And I'm hoping that this is one of those games where he doesn't have his best stuff. But the problem is when he does have his best stuff, he's very tough to hit. So the Red Sox, if that is the case, if it's a game where he's on point, the Red Sox goal should be to take very disciplined at-bats where they're running up his pitch count and hopefully trying to get him out of the game earlier, which is something that the Red Sox are capable of doing. So that's something that I'd like to see them do in this series regardless, is just be able to put pressure on these pitchers that they're going up against and run up the pitch counts and really be patient at the plate. Something that Connor Wong in particular has been very good at this year. Houck is pitching for the Red Sox. I mean, kind of goes without saying. 8-6 with a 2.71 ERA. He is the Red Sox ace, and he's somebody that I trust to go out there and get the job done. He did struggle a little bit in the first game of the series against the Rockies. He gave up 4 earned runs, but considering everything and how Wednesday's game went, that really did not look that bad. So that was one of the rare times where he didn't produce a quality start. But you know what? It's Tanner Houck. He is going to get you what you need. He's going to give the Red Sox innings, which has been something that's been very good for him this year because he hasn't always been able to provide that type of depth and pitching deeper into games for Boston. Every time he started to face the lineup the third time of other teams, he would struggle. So now that he has the opportunity to go out there and bounce back from his last start, I think he absolutely will. Keep in mind, too, the Yankees are not a very good hitting team outside of Judge and Soto, especially with Stanton on the IL. They don't really have a lot of solid hitters, really, that they can rely on regularly to produce. So with a guy like Tanner Houck pitching, I expect him to have the type of start that we've seen primarily from him all season long. So I really like the Red Sox chances in that third game, but you never know. I mean, baseball's a crazy sport. Who would have thought the Rockies would put up 21s on Wednesday? Kind of crazy. How do you score 20 in a game? I mean, doesn't really happen, but of all teams to do it, the Rockies, I mean, it's ironic, but that's baseball. You never really know. But I'm looking forward to the series. I mean, the Red Sox have won both series that they've played against the Yankees this season. So I definitely like their chances, but they can't be making 4 errors in the game like they did on Wednesday against the Rockies. I just think things did not go their way. Tough road trip for the Red Sox, but a much needed off day that they had yesterday. And hopefully they can bounce back and get back to winning games like they've been doing over the last couple months, because I believe in this team and its ability, because we've seen them go up against really good competition and win games. And so I want to see that team come through again in this series, and I feel like they can. Just need everybody to be locked in and on point, and they should be even extra motivated if this news about Casas is true, that he might be starting a rehab assignment this weekend, because for the sake of all of us and momentum and excitement, we could definitely use him back in this lineup sooner rather than later. So hopefully they can at least take 2 of 3 from the Yankees. Obviously, you always know me with my wishful thinking and my strong dislike for the Yankees, that a sweep would always be ideal, but I'm not going to be greedy about it. 2 of 3 would absolutely be more than acceptable to me. So let's go after it, win this series, bounce back, and go into this trade deadline with a bang. As always, go Red Sox, keep the faith, and I will catch you on the flip side.